Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the meeting this evening, our first meeting of this financial and council year of the Communities Public Protection Housing Scrutiny Review Board. So it is Monday, the 22nd of July, 2024, just after 6 p.m. So, as members familiar to this board will know, I always like to start off with a round of introductions. So my name is Councillor Matthew Eyre. I'm the chair of this committee and a councillor for Oakwood Ward. I'll come round to my left.
Councillor Gulfraz Nawaz, Councillor for Breton Ward.
Councillor Kieran Kaur, Councillor for Normanton.
Bob Gill, acting head of community safety.
Councillor Gaurav Pandey from Ecuador, New Zealand.
Councillor Falk from Alveston South.
Dominic Monaghan, Democratic Services Officer.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you, everybody. So, to our returning members, welcome back. I hope we'll have as good a year this year as we had last year. And to Councillor Nawaz, welcome to the committee. Good to have you here, and hope you'll be part of our great year. So, going first of all to apologies. We've had apologies from Councillor Ingle. There's no other apologies.
No,
fabulous. Okay, late items to be introduced by the chair for this meeting. I've got no late items. So item 3 is declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from anybody at all? No, fab. So I just put on record that between October 2021 and May 2023, I was cabinet member for Communities in Place and then Communities Place and Tourism. I don't think it pertains to the item on this meeting, although I did oversee some of the Safer Streets bids. I didn't have involvement with Safer Streets 5, which is the one that we're discussing today. So I don't think it in any way precludes me from chairing the meeting today. Before we move on to the main bits of the agenda as well, we've got a slightly slimmer agenda than we were expecting. One of the reports that was going to come to this meeting is now going to come to the September meeting instead. So that's why we've only got the one on the agenda today. So moving on then to item 4, so minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of April 2024. I've been through these. I've got no issue with the minutes. I'm happy to propose them. Anybody happy to second? Fabulous, thank you. And we'll take those as read and agreed. So moving on then to item 5, our Safer Streets update, and Pop, that's over to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm just waiting for that to load up on the screen. Thank you. So, clues in the title, we've had 4 rounds previously, and the latest iteration was round 5. Kind of the objective through all of these rounds is to essentially devolve funding down to police and crime commissioners and into local authority areas to combat a range of crime and disorder issues. Now, in the early days, it was very much focused around antisocial behaviours, robbery, that type of thing. What we saw pretty much from round 3 through to round 5, there was more of a heavy emphasis being placed on city centre nighttime economy, and especially around violence against women and girls. I won't read these off line by line because you've got them in the back, and you can see them on the board. Sorry, Dom, can you just move on? Because I've got it in front of me and it's up there, so sorry if I'm looking down at this one. But you can see, there's a range of priorities and objectives within Safer Streets around 5, but ultimately it is all about crime and disorder and improving local responses to that, not just through the local authority, it can be through policing and other organisations as well. Can we just move on to the next one, Tom? So there are a number of requirements in terms of the funding. First and foremost, it has to be to a defined geographical area, because we get many questions asked, why is it only being done in that location and not across the whole city? Government requirements are that we target what we call local super output areas, so it's not even at a ward level, it's part of a ward that we look into. And also, we then have to define the crimes within that area that are taking priority in terms of our response. Another requirement is that as local authorities, we don't have the ability to directly bid into the Safer Streets funds. It has to be administered by the Police and Crime Commissioner, who essentially looks at our expressions of interest, decides whether they want to support them, and then that is submitted to Government Home Office for a decision. We were fortunate in the last round that we had an indicative value of roughly 80,000 that would be allocated to the city, and then for membership, the bid that would support that. Just on to the next one, please. Now, it did come with a caveat because it's the Police and Crime Commissioner that's applying for the funding. She was able to then define what crimes also that she wanted us to focus in on, and very specifically.
What's VAWG?
I was just about to say violence against women and girls. Yeah, sorry, we fall into ball because it's such a longer title. Yeah, so there was that requirement that she had chosen 3 locations: Derby City Centre, Chesterfield, and Amber Valley, and wanted the bids and the projects to reflect tackling crime in those locations. The reason for that was the initial intelligence that the Police and Crime Commissioner was looking at. You can see there 20%, just over 20% of nighttime economy crimes all had a violence against women and girls flag against them. So really, really disproportionate in terms of the city centre nighttime economy and the rest of the city. As part of developing the bid, we did a deeper dive, and obviously, sorry, these figures relate to 22-23 because they're the timeline of when we submitted the bid. You can see in much greater detail the number of offences that are taking place within the city centre boundary in relation to those crimes. So rapes, violence with injury, sexual offences, alongside other public disorder related offences. So that all gave us the geography that we needed to focus into, but also what it was we were actually trying to combat. Now, there were a number of other projects that were taken forward as well. I'm not going to go into detail with those because the funding was allocated elsewhere. It went directly to the police as part of their operational response and nighttime economy inspector-led delivery. So the money didn't come to us. On to the next one, please. So the key thing here, and again, a lot of people question, well, five cameras, 5 new locations at the tune of 83,000. Why is it so expensive to put these cameras in? And it's really for two practical reasons. One is the type of camera that we purchase are the new pan tilt zoom cameras. So they're not just in a fixed location. We can rotate, we can move, we can actively monitor. Plus, they're also deployable in the sense that we can take them off one column and move them up to another. I'm sure the issue of DPIAs and well, that will come in a moment. So I'll come back.
I was quite shocked, but when I looked at the cost, I wanted to ask you, but now you're covering. They look like really, really expensive, in thousands.
Yeah, it very much is the kind of state-of-the-art cameras. If we'd gone for the traditional kind of fixed dome type camera, we are talking £6,000-7,000, but you don't have the ability to zoom in and focus on a particular location or an individual through those. They are very much fixed.
So have they always been that expensive, or is it like recent phenomenon? Like the cost has gone that high.
The costs have gone up as well. It's that, as with everything within kind of all markets now, the components are far more expensive. The lead in time to actually purchase them is so much more, and that's actually impacted on the delivery as well. So because this funding spanned 2 financial years, what we did in 23-24 was buy the actual kit, and this financial year is when we're actually installing it. And that's partly been because of supplies of the lighting columns and some of the other fibre kit that we need just wasn't available in 23-24.
We had Balsaviti check over the posts.
Yes, we have to check structurally that they will take.
Is that £6 a post?
That's the other cost. Yeah,
because we're having something of a neighbourhood board in Allington.
That's it. We put one in already, haven't we? So
I don't know. Have it gone in now? We keep asking, and it's never gone in.
I will check, but I know the kit was purchased last year through the neighbourhood board.
We authorised the camera.
That's it. With the columns, we have to Balfour's test the structure and integrity of the column. Will it take the weight? And if not, we then have to replace the column to then obviously take the weight of the camera. The other costs then are with the whether it's being delivered by Wi-Fi, the signal back to the control room here at the city council, or we're linking into fibre optic cabling. So those costs obviously all start to mount. So what we also did though was to kind of extend and make maximum use of that funding. There was already a capital programme going in for service car parks to upgrade CCTV in those. The ones listed there that you can see all had outdated kit that was either not working or there just was no CCTV coverage in those. And because they all sat within the NTE city centre areas for them, it made sense to kind of get as much for our money as possible and work with the highways team to upgrade those cameras. So you won't, if you've had the pack, you won't have seen this next slide. So it's just realised at very last minute, you'd want to know where the 5 cameras are going in.
Delete that question off of here.
Now, this isn't the whole of the city. It's just really kind of the inner ring road cameras. We have got a number outside of the area and going over towards Chancellorton Park, but also into Normanton Arboretum, specifically Normanton Road. But I just concentrated on the city centre, and you can see from the 5 red dots, those are the intended locations for the new cameras. And I'll just try and work through those. So looking at the top 2, that's Thorntree Lane. That's the one that runs to the, if you're facing it, to the left of Tesco Express, the alleyway that then runs through to
Tory Street.
That's it. Yeah.
Tory Street.
That's it. Yeah, just further down. That site has probably had more offences committed than most others within the city centre. Replacing 2 cameras there purely because of line of sight. The way the alley curves, you can't get a direct sight all the way down. So we're putting 1 on either side there. The other one then just coming down on the left-hand side, that is St Peter's Cross. You all know the issues that we have with St Peter's Cross and the media coverage. So we are going to be putting this as whilst it's a deployable camera, it will pretty much stay for as long as needed within St Peter's Cross. And that will then give us pretty much a 360 view of what is happening around that area. Just coming down to the last, kind of the bottom on the left, that is the corner of Badminton Lane and Gower Street. Because again, we have so many issues on Gower Street and the block of flats there. And the key thing is to say these are redeployable. So at some point we will move these to other locations. The final one is just on the edge of the city centre as we move over to Castle Ward, again, another area where we've had significant issues with crime and antisocial behaviour. What's left is all of the blue ones. So those blue are what's already in situ within the city centre. As I said, it does go beyond that. That just gives you an idea of the scale of coverage that we've got in the inner city. And despite years of investment into CCTV, there are still so many blind spots around the city centre that get exploited. Well, it's not going to be the ultimate deterrent, but what it will certainly do is help detect more crimes as well. Police have access to our control room. It is on request, but they're able to come in, view footage, download this and use it for prosecution purposes. At significant events or other occasions, depending on need, they will also then place themselves within the control room. We give them access to the equipment and they're able to do live monitoring themselves as part of their operational responses. There's usually always an inspector in the control room on the Friday and Saturday night to support the nighttime economy. And then we have our funded active monitoring daytime and nighttime throughout the year as well.
Nice.
Yes.
You know, you says the inspector's always there, you know, watching it. But it's only one way, you know, if somebody gets attacked and I'll give you an example, as a taxi driver gets attacked, the police are never there. They won't take the camera over footage or anything. They say we can't, the council won't give it to us. But when there is something else happen, the police get the footage straight away. Why is that?
I don't agree with what you've been told, because as I say, we have a protocol and process for the police to access the council house.
Yeah, but the police always blame it onto the council, or the council are not allowing us.
If they've asked to download the footage, we will not stand.
Yes.
To access the footage anytime. Councillor was right.
That's it.
Yes.
I can't speak on behalf of the
No, I'm
council,
not.
but what I
Yeah.
can say is, I guess what I'm saying is that isn't the answer that you should have received.
Yeah.
Because we do have a process, we do have a protocol they can access. At the moment, we dedicate a Wednesday morning just to do the viewing and downloading, because that seems to work between ourselves and the operators and the police. But if there's an urgent need, that can be done as well. That can be signed off. You just need to submit their data access request form. We give them the access. They come in and they download. So maybe I am speaking out of turn, but at no point should any police officer say they're not allowed to view footage. They may have to go through the process to view it, but it's not a matter of no, you can't view it.
So the process is quite easy. So if a police officer wants to look at the footage for a certain date and time, they can always do it. It's just the accessing and using will require the
process to go through.
But they can come and look at it whenever they want.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah. We keep the data on the hard drives for 30 days, and then it just is an automatic write over. Because if we don't need it after 30 days, there's absolutely no reason for us to keep it for any longer. If there's a crime committed and it's reported, usually within 30 days that will be viewed and downloaded.
Like in CSI, they can go back 2-3 years. We can't do that.
GDPR. And our server isn't big enough to hold all of that data. And you can see, sorry, it's got off the screen, but you can see all of the cameras that we have. You can imagine all of the data coming down from that. And that's one of the other reasons, sorry, Councillor Park, I'm not looking at you now in terms of the, I know when you were looking at funding one through the neighbourhood board, and it was like, sharp intake of breath at the cost of it. This is partly, again, the other reason the cost is networking it into the control room here, then has all of those additional costs attached to it of active monitoring, maintenance, etc. that goes with it.
You beat me to the point on that question. But is our camera as good as what these others you've put up?
You've got the same.
That's the top and bottom of it.
You've got the same camera. It's even got a little wiper on it too.
Oh right,
to wipe the rain away.
I'm interested. I mean, crikey, I live in. Hadn't seen the camera last week.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's gone up yet.
I've got that many going in, as you can imagine at the moment. Yeah. I may have spoken out to turn and said yours is in, but I'll check with Jack in the other.
We've got one going in Brindley Court as well, I believe.
That's the first one that was going in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the other one was the shop. No, sorry, the shops was the first one, and then Brindley Court was the second one.
I don't know. We were just asking from both, and it wasn't the cost of the camera; it was the cost of assessing the post that caused the biggest intake of breath on that.
But this is what is. We've got to have a balance here, and this was part. Sorry, I'm going slightly off topic in terms of Safer Streets 5, but in terms of our public realm community safety cameras, I think we're up to about 85, 86 cameras across the city, and whilst the bulk of those have been put in since 2019, we've still got legacy cameras going back probably 10 years. From the original CCTV systems, and this is now what we're trying to balance is one, adding more stress to the system. We need to increase our capacity, cabling, etc. Plus, we also now need to start replacing some of those older cameras. So any new work we do is probably going to be to replace the old stock and bring them up to date. But one of my aims is that using yourselves as the kind of the pilot for this is if neighbourhoods do want their own cameras, if we can fund those through the board funding, you then have a deployable camera that you're able to move around within your own capacity. It's far quicker than, sorry, I have to smile as I Councillor Panday. It's far quicker than putting other cameras in because we've already got a data protection impact assessment in place for public realm. CCTV, purpose legislation, etc. So it takes time, but it's a very swift process. So adding those types of cameras to this network is easy in terms of data protection. When we come to things like the wildlife cameras, where we're doing it on a covert basis, those are then a whole new set of hoops that we have to jump through for data protection. So I'm just getting that one.
Corin, I've got you.
So I have two questions. The first question is, you said obviously the cost of it. So when you look at the private sector, and I look at Amazon as well, they seem to do things at much lesser price than the council, and they are spreading as well. So is council looking maybe to look at maybe a tier 2 kind of monitoring, which would be this one? So is there like a plan for that? And the second question was, is there like vandalizing of these cameras happening? Have you had? That's good thing.
No, I'll shake my head on the vandalising straight away. I think those days of, probably a decade ago when they would be damaged, we don't experience any damage to them. In terms of cost, the cameras we buy are at a price that are consistent with the market. So I can talk you through this outside of the meeting, but when you look at those, the type of cameras that Amazon stock and that are available, they're not going to be as robust as the type that we purchase. If you looked at those, you'll find them pretty much the same price. One thing that we are doing at the moment, we have Atlas Security Limited, who provide our active monitoring. So they're the guys in the control room looking at the evenings. And we have Synectics, who provide all of the maintenance to the equipment and the network itself. Both of those contracts are up for renewal from April 2025. So we are just starting the process of going back out to market and tender to price those off. Now, there might be savings that we can make in those.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, if because if the connectivity is an expensive thing to do, would it be a good idea to go for self-storage once and then overriding? Would that be an idea that can be considered?
It is an option. The difficulty with that is, again, it's the data protection element of it, because with those, it's where is that signal going to be sent to? And if it's not being sent anywhere, so an officer then has to go and essentially park themselves beneath that camera to download the footage to a mobile device. Again, GDPR, DPI8, there's so many risks around that. Having the signal come here into the control room is a very secure way of doing it. There are price differences between doing a wireless signal and doing fibre optic cabling. In the short term, the wireless signal is the cheaper option, because we're not having to dig up roads, etc. But in the long term, fibre optic saves money because we're not having to renew data packages.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah. When we're talking about violence against women and girls, I get that we've picked a kind of all these cameras have been picked because of a geographical area that's been highlighted, etc. I've got two questions basically on the same topic. That what's the next step after this? So this area has been picked for this specific reason. Are there any other areas that are already in mind? And particularly my thought process would be about parks. I think car parks is definitely one issue, but violence against women and girls, I mean, nationally there's very high profile cases, and as the winter months roll on, October, November, people are cutting through parks, but, at 4 p.m. it starts to get dark, and, naturally, because of things we hear in the media and because of things that actually do happen in real life, women and girls may feel more at risk. So is that being taken into consideration?
It has. And if we looked at, in an ideal world, these 5 cameras, if we haven't been told city centre is where you've got to focus, then we would have looked at some of those other areas. When we did Safer Streets round 3, there was a lot of consultation because that's pretty much the sole focus of 3 was violence against women and girls. And there was also the Safety of Women at Night fund that came out at the same time.
All right, and saying Pop that Safer Streets 3 was not long after the murder of Sarah Everard.
That's it. Yeah, so that's why the focus was very much on violence against women and girls. And then the SWAN, the Safety of Women at Night Fund, was immediately after the death of Sarah Everard, murder, should I say, of Sarah Everard. So when we did that consultation, there were a number of locations across the city where we said, yeah, we could do with cameras there, we could do with cameras there. Now I'm going to pull out the standard. Financially, as a local authority, we don't have any of that capital funding to put the cameras in, so we rely on these external grants, such as Safer Streets, to be able to do that. So in an ideal world, sorry, the short answer would have been round 6, should it come through. Obviously, there's a change in government. We don't know how the priorities will work in terms of Safer Streets. But if that comes out, that is certainly something we will look at. Aside from the kind of the physical measures such as CCTV, there was a lot of work going on through the Violence Against Women and Girls thematic board of the Safer Communities board as well. So it's not just about physical measures, it's about other things that are happening as well. And it could be that we should look at some to talk about how the thematic boards are operating to deliver the safer priorities for the city. Because that goes into serious violence. It also goes into domestic abuse and sexual abuse and violence. So there's a raft of other things that are being done. And it's more the kind of preventative protection measures rather than physical.
Anyone for everybody else? Yeah, Steve?
And sort of following on from that question, we've financed 2 cameras, but we work together as obviously north and south, so that is a distinct advantage. But can you, or could you sort of encourage some of the other wards to, if they've got some particularly bad areas or some particular area that they wanted to do, to encourage those to look at it themselves?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Falcon. This is what I was referring to as using Galveston as the example and I suppose pilot approach to this. Because if you see a return on investment from the board funding that you put through, that then is a good news story that we can use with other locations and say, we can't do it from the centre, but if you want to invest your local board funding into it, you've got a camera that you can then deploy where you see fit. Obviously, your time with client and other needs, but it just gives you greater flexibility rather than having to have something that is totally dictated by the centre. Because obviously, that's why we have neighbourhood boards to determine local priorities and local responses.
Because obviously, until you provided it, we would have been well down the list before the council ever allocated a camera in our area. So that's why we wanted to.
Yeah.
All of these things that you say, antisocial behaviour, people having a free lunch in Greg's is the main thing.
How much is it for one?
It works out approximately 15,000. That's kind of having then the camera.
How did you fund that? 8.5, 7.5. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So that's the camera as its kit. That includes the data and Wi-Fi package, potentially the column. So you may make a saving if the column is already structurally suitable and available. If depending on line of sight. So if I take Pear Tree Road as an example, we've got cameras on Normanton Road, but so I don't think they go round the corner onto Pear Tree Road. But you've got a Wi-Fi line of sight to Normanton, so it makes it a bit cheaper to then bounce it on. You're not having to put new cables in. So we say approximately 15 because that should be then the full price of what it takes to put everything in.
How frequently can they be moved around, and what's the cost of moving one?
You know what? I don't actually know the cost of moving a camera.
Sorry to interrupt you. We were quoted £250 a time.
Yeah.
Whether it's more than that now, I don't know.
Within the city, as part of the maintenance contracts that we have with Synetics, they come out and do a regular review of cameras, so we can tie in some of the other moves with them. That's why I wasn't sure with the other city, because they're literally out every week doing something with the cameras.
If it was in another area where they're not as
You would then be
frequenting as
the price quoted for Alveston, yeah, that would stand. Yeah.
Any further questions from anybody? Okay, but we sort of skipped to. Oh, sorry, go on, Steve.
So when you've got these cameras and the police can access them, is that going to be able to be followed up by some proper prosecutions? Or will somebody be saying about, well, they're infringing your personal rights or whatever, and then that person, even though they've been seen on the camera, just walk away? I know that's not necessarily your rule.
I don't think so. Obviously, we have signs around saying CCTV monitoring. We have a privacy policy in relation to CCTV, and if it's being used for the detection of crime or the prevention of crime, that is a legitimate use of CCTV. I can't imagine, again, the police saying, well, we're infringing on someone's human rights here by...
I wasn't thinking of the police, I was thinking of the lawyer.
Oh, right, yeah. CPS are their own entity.
Yeah.
What they decide, I just can't comment on. But no, the very fact that we have that access protocol, they are able to download, and CCTV footage is used as prosecution evidence. Yeah, no.
Thank you.
The car park cameras that were mentioned on the slides, we've kind of skipped those a little bit. Would you have to talk a bit more to us about those?
Essentially, it's the same type of camera, as a slightly lower spec, because we don't need the full 180 pan tilt zoom type approach to these. So as part of the capital programme, approval had already been given to put cameras into certain locations. The issue that the highways had was that the prices had essentially gone up from when that capital approval had been given. We're going back to kind of 21, 22, when they first went into the capital programme. So to ensure the kind of most up-to-date cameras were available, that's where we then contributed part of the Safer Streets 5 funding to them. And it really, that sounds like a really simple answer, but essentially just slightly lower spec, because we don't need the full visibility that the street cameras need.
Our part, as you're well aware, that would be, at least for me, would be off my list.
Charlotte Street.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Instead of Chevron Street, why can't we have it on Charlotte Street or Grove Street car park?
So, as I say, I can only come back to having to work to that defined geography where that disproportionate impact.
Because in Charlotte Street, there's hardly anything happened in Charlotte Street, but
it's part of it is kind of Charlotte Street. Nothing.
Sorry, Chevron.
I was going to say sorry. When
Yeah,
you
sorry.
said that. I was like,
Yeah.
take it back. It's coverage. So where Chevron Street is, if you think about the ring road and what it then links in, it's not always a case of what it might be viewing at the time. It's what might have happened in the city centre and what then may. But no, I'll say it as it is. People in the city centre who then make their getaway out of the city centre. It's having kind of all avenues covered that we can do that. And again, this comes back to the police, that they would want that footage, whether it's for a number plate or identification of a car, or even individuals on foot who are moving from one location to another.
Okay, fantastic. Any further questions for anybody at all? No, fantastic. I've got one final one, Pop, but it's more on sort of CCTV in general than it is on Safer Streets, which is how closely do yourself and community safety and the CCTV team work with grounds teams to ensure that obviously we've not got as much maintenance on trees and things like that as some people may like. How do we make sure that we're not ever in a position where a CCTV camera is being blocked by a tree or anything like that? Because I can think of a nightmare scenario where the only time we find out is when we go to try and get the footage and go, oh, last time we checked, there were no leaves on that tree. Now we can't see what's happened. Is there a partnership working there to be sure of that?
I'm currently working on a CCTV report, which would probably be worth bringing back to you to look at before we take it any further. But that report is essentially doing a kind of state of the CCTV network and issues that we have with it. One of those issues is line of sight because of trees and bushers. You use the word partnership. Yes, we have a partnership. Let's just say we don't always see eye to eye on where a branch needs to be cut or a tree planted, but we're actively working on that. Because we've got active monitoring in the control room, they will literally cycle through all cameras at a given time. So if there are any obstructions, we'll know about it immediately. And then we put the request in for the trees to be cut back. As part of that kind of audit of the estate, it's also then deciding, have we got the cameras in the right locations? Do we need to move them? Even things like Christmas lights, when they go up, they can interfere with the line of sight and even the glow onto the camera lenses. Yeah.
Fantastic. Right. Well, thank you, Pop, for that report. Really appreciate it. And I think, to bring the policy back as that's fleshed out, I think that'd be really good to do, to give us more of a sight on that would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we'll move on then to the final item on our agenda, item 6. So the work programme for, I think I should say 24-25, it's 23-24 on that. So we've got a list of meetings, the dates on there. Again, we're in the position where our year of scrutiny is due to end on January the 20th, and I was unhappy about that, as I was last time round. So I think we'll come up to a date later in time, but we will put another meeting in there between March, April time, because otherwise we end up having nearly 6 months off as a board. I don't think really, I can't justify that. I don't think any of us really can. I think we're going to provide some vital scrutiny over the year, and we shouldn't really stop in January and treat it as job done. So closer to the time, we'll put another meeting in there to move that forwards. And if anybody's got any items now for the work programme they'd like to put forward. Obviously, the item we've got on there for September is the item that was going to come forward today, which we've now delayed till that meeting. Anybody, any items at all they'd like to bring?
The one in September, Derby Hunt Finder. What's that?
So that one came around some concerns really raised at exec scrutiny. So it was a bit of a recommendation that was passed by the cabinet to us around some concerns about properties not appearing on Home Finder, how the Home Finder system works and things like making it more user friendly, that sort of thing. So giving us a chance to go over how it works, how user friendly it is, and any reasons around properties not appearing. So I'll take that as no items proposed at this stage. Obviously,
For time.
yeah, for the time being, of course. Yeah. In the time between now and the next meeting, please feel free to come to myself and the vice chair with any items at all. I think, if not, myself and the vice chair will make sure there are things on the agenda, but I don't want it to be a kind of two-person band on this. We're all equal members in this committee in terms of proposing stuff, and I'd like to have any ideas that come forward. So thank you everybody for that one. Unless there's anything else, no, I'll close the meeting at that. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.